Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the trend of having a luxury skincare routine has been taking off, but what are the dangers of young kids and teens taking part in this trend? A dermatologist from Mount Sinai Health System speaks on the importance of using the right skincare for all ages. Then the Signal Fund launches with $15.6 million raised and aims to prioritize founders with overlooked potential for scalable social impact. We are joined by the Chief Operating Officer of Echoing Green to learn more about this financial tool. After that, many may be surprised to know that the foster care system started right here in New York. The CEO and Executive Director of the JCCA sits with me later on to speak on the importance of foster care awareness. And finally, City Meals on Wheels is committed to ending hunger among older adults in New York City by 2040. The COO for City Meals on Wheels speaks more about their fight to end hunger in NYC. So stay tuned to all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, June 4th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Luxury skincare products are becoming more popular among children and preteens ages 7 to 13. Drawn to the shelves of stores like Sephora and Ulta, tweens and teens are buying a variety of skincare items, including anti-aging creams, moisturizers, and acne serums. Dr. Helen He, a dermatologist for Mount Sinai Health System, joins me to discuss the potential impact of these products on younger skin. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, this is a really interesting topic, and I'm so excited that, we have you here to talk about this. But I want to jump right into it. Why have children and teens become so interested in skincare and preventative skincare health measures?
I think a major reason for that is because we are currently in the digital age where information is more readily accessible than ever before. And of course, social media plays a huge role in this as well. So, as a child or a teen, if you see your favorite influencer with absolutely flawless skin, like not a pore to be found on their face, promoting a cream or a serum that they say they use every day, and that's the reason their skin looks the way it does, that can be so difficult to resist. And I think that with this type of content becoming almost ubiquitous in the lives of many kids and teens, not to mention influence from other kids in school who might be consuming similar types of content, it's really no surprise that kids and teens are developing an interest in skincare.
Now, I'm curious to know why is this sudden interest considered a double-edged sword?
I think it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, I love the fact that even my youngest patients are understanding the importance of taking care of their skin early on, developing healthy skincare habits, like applying sunscreen, for example, will in the long term have benefits on the skin, like reducing the risk of skin cancers. But we're now kind of veering towards another extreme where kids and teens now have really complicated skincare regimens, and these may include anti-aging products that are intended for adults. And those are often not only expensive and not useful for this demographic, but can even cause harm.
Now, I'm curious to know, do you think that possibly because it's skincare, that's why more parents are maybe a little bit more open to buying these products for their kids? Because I know maybe a decade ago or a few years ago even, makeup was really big for a lot of children, and now it's skincare. So do you think that that could also be the reason why parents are more likely to participate, in this trend with their kids?
Yeah, again, I think because there's more information about this and trends kind of come and go, just like the makeup trend from a couple of decades ago as well. So I think because parents and kids both have more information about skincare and what's out there and more of a curiosity as well, parents may be also buying more products for their kids because they're also developing an interest. But I think that's where education about what's appropriate for that age group versus what might be potentially harmful is really important.
Now, I think this is a great segue to talk about the differences between adult and teen skin. And I'm curious to know, are there consequences even more extreme when it comes to kids that are, possibly even in elementary school?
Yeah, absolutely. So as for the first question of the differences between adult and kid skin, they're absolutely not the same because the skin is a dynamic organ that actually changes throughout the course of one's lifetime. And as a result, what the skin needs to be healthy also changes. Kids and teens tend to have thinner skin, so that's going to be more sensitive and prone to irritation. And of course, because of puberty, you get huge fluctuations in hormone levels that affects every organ of the body, and that includes the skin. So teenagers tend to have more sebaceous, oilier, and acne-prone skin. At Mount Sinai, we've even done studies where we looked at skin biopsies that of kids and teens versus adults, where we show that they're really not the same at all. And yes, the consequences can be more extreme for kids under the age of 12 as well, because the skin progressively increases in thickness throughout childhood. So they have thinner skin that is more prone to irritation and redness.
And I just want to say thank you so much for educating us on this because I, for one, definitely thought that, like when I saw products that were marketed to, maybe babies or younger kids, I thought it was just a marketing tactic. I had no idea that there actually were differences in our skin. So thank you so much for educating us on that. Now, kids and teens have taken an interest in a lot of luxury skincare products that contain retinol and vitamin C. What do those products do and how are they harmful to younger skin?
Right. So retinol and vitamin C are common ingredients with anti-aging and antioxidant properties that promote skin turnover and build collagen. And that's why I often recommend them to adult patients who want to build that collagen and improve skin texture and combat some of the signs of skin aging, like fine lines, wrinkles, dyspigmentation. But kids and teens don't really have these types of issues and they don't really need anti-aging. And if anything, those types of products can actually overstimulate the skin and potentially cause harmful effects.
Thank you so much for that. Now, what impact are these products currently having on children and tweens who use them? And by the impact, I mean, is it causing children to have acne breakouts, or we just talked about hyperpigmentation? Is it actually, doing the reverse effect if they're using these products?
Yeah, no, great question. Retinol and vitamin C, they're known to be irritating. And given, as I said, kids already have really sensitive skin at baseline, they're more likely to develop the redness, the irritation, eczema, or contact dermatitis. And if they do develop eczema or contact dermatitis, they're going to get these red, scaly patches that itch and are uncomfortable, and it can even like make the skin more rough to the touch, and in the long run that can actually lead to premature skin aging and wrinkles. And like you said, for hyperpigmentation, especially for patients with darker skin tones, these rashes can heal with post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation that can take months to resolve, and that's probably exactly the opposite of what kids and teens would want for their skin, really for anyone would want to their skin. So these products are not only not beneficial for that age group, but can even be counterproductive and harmful.
And with that, I would like to also highlight exfoliants. I know that those are also very popular amongst all ages, but why might this skincare activity of using an exfoliant be a little bit more harmful to younger skin?
So both physical and chemical exfoliants, so think acids like AHAs and BHAs, are by design stripping away at the outer layer of the skin that is really critical for retaining moisture of the skin. And that can leave the skin thinner, irritated, and dry. And exfoliants, moreover, as well as retinols, actually, because it thins out the skin, it also leaves the skin more photosensitive and more likely to burn in the sun. And that, by making it more sensitive to the sun, can lead to accelerated skin aging, paradoxically, and also can increase the risk for skin cancers.
Now, how should parents address this new interest kids have in a way that isn't dismissive? And with that also, are there any products that parents can look to that are safe for kids to use?
I think, again, the fact that kids are expressing an interest in skincare is actually really a wonderful thing that should be encouraged. I think it may be productive for parents to have conversations with their kids about what exactly are the skincare needs that they want to address. Is it their eczema? Is it their acne? And why is it that they want to buy this specific product? Like, what makes it so appealing? I think that this could be a great opportunity for kids and their parents to research and learn together about what skincare habits, practices, products are actually helpful for their targeted skin concerns versus what's superfluous and can even be harmful. And I think it's also a good opportunity for parents to teach their kids to critically think about the content they consume, and really to question or encourage them to question whether they want this product because of its benefits that is backed by scientific evidence, or is it because they just saw it in a trendy TikTok video, for example? So that way, with that approach, parents are teaching their kids a valuable life lesson, while also teaching their kids to think critically and giving them the respect of critical and independent thinkers.
Now, I'm curious to know, do you think that skincare brands now have this responsibility to possibly even warn parents who buy these products for their children, or, just have this responsibility to understand who their audience is?
I think that they definitely share in that responsibility. The reality is that while skincare companies may be financially incentivized to make their products appealing to both teens, kids, and adults, um, it would be irresponsible of them to market a product not intended for kids and teens to that demographic. But luckily, I think a lot of major skincare companies are actually moving away from that trend, and some of them are even engaging in anti marketing campaigns, so to speak, where they're actively discouraging their young consumers from buying products with high concentrations of active ingredients. And I think that's an example that other companies should follow as well. And I think that's something that would go a long way in establishing trust with their consumer base, especially with parents.
Now, elected leaders in California are introducing a bill banning the sale of anti-aging skin products to children under the age of 13. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, and is this something that more states should follow?
I think that this is a pretty interesting concept, actually, and I definitely agree with the sentiments behind this bill. And I appreciate that this issue is actually being taken seriously at its state level. I could foresee some people having some concerns or questions about the enforceability of such a bill, as well as the potential ramifications for restricting consumer freedom. But and also I do think putting all of the onus on retailers may not be sufficient, whereas this should really be a shared responsibility of government, social media platforms, parents, dermatologists, really at every level. But I do think this is a great first step in putting forth legislation that aims to safeguard our young kids from these harmful effects of anti-aging products. And yes, I do think other states should follow suit in having dialogue about what are the most effective strategies to provide education and to promote healthy skin in our young patients.
Well, doctor, I want to thank you so much for joining us and really having this interesting and educational discussion. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
If you would like to learn more or want to schedule an appointment, please go to the website at mountsinai.org/care/dermatology. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open after this.
Hello, my name is Tyrone Lowe. I host a show at Bronx they call the legends, where I bring real legends, DJs, upcoming artists, actually people from the past that's into entertainment. I want to thank BronxNet. First of all, I want to thank for the 30 years of the actually being active here. It has opened a lot of doors for me to the point where I'm branching off to have my own network. Fulfill your dreams here. That's all I have to say.
Welcome back. With the mission to address the issues facing the world, the organization Echoing Green aims to empower emerging leaders with the best ideas for social innovation. Echoing Green's community of nearly 1,000 social innovators include past fellows such as former First Lady Michelle Obama and the founders of Teach for America. Chief Operating Officer for Echoing Green, Sharyanne McSwain, now joins me to discuss their latest initiative titled the Signal Fund. Sharyanne, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Kibin. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to learn a little bit more about your organization because you're doing so many amazing things. Can you first share an overview of Echoing Green and its mission?
Sure. Echoing Green is a global nonprofit that finds early stage social innovators. Those are emerging leaders with the absolute best ideas for social change. Our fellowship is an 18-month program that provides support in three main areas: capital, capacity building, and community. Echoing Green Fellows work on a variety of important issues such as climate, food justice, health, racial equity, technology, and many, many more sectors. Our fellow community is made up of nearly 1,000 fellows, as you mentioned. They are from 86 different countries around the world. And in Echoing Green, we really believe that investing in people is the most important thing. Yes, a business plan is important, but it's truly our fellows that we invest in.
Now that's amazing, and as you all the things that you mentioned is just you're just doing amazing work, and you've added on to that with the Signal Fund. Can you provide an overview of the program and its objectives?
Sure. Echoing Green has created the Signal Fund as a financial tool that provides capital to social innovators at very critical growth stages. Despite being one of the most powerful drivers of social change, so many social innovators aren't receiving the capital that they need to scale when they need it most. So to date, we've raised $15.6 million and invested $3.6 million as a part of our pilot phase.
Well, with that, I definitely like to learn a little bit more about the inspiration behind, what sparked the creation of the Signal Fund.
Echoing Green has been around for 36 years, and since our founding, we've tested a variety of funding mechanisms to invest in social innovators. And what we found is that social innovators' needs are not at all being met in the current funding landscape using traditional capital markets. And that's why Signal was created, to ensure that social innovators are able to receive the funding that they need in order to grow and scale.
Now, I'm curious to know, how does the Signal Fund differ from, maybe some other financial tools currently available for people who are, working to create social change?
Well, Signal Fund gives priorities to founders with what I would call overlooked potential for scalable social impact. In the current climate, fundraising is really difficult for entrepreneurs. And through the Signal Fund, we have a means of strengthening and de-risking this new pipeline of social innovators. These are ones that we believe that are going to expand the set of leaders who are so often overlooked by mainstream philanthropy and financial institutions. We believe that this fund will help proven social innovators move past what we call the valley of death that so many startups face, achieving organizational milestones recognizable to traditional investors without compromising in their impact.
Now, how does the Signal Fund address the significant funding disparities faced by Black-led organizations and underrepresented founders, as highlighted in several studies?
At Echoing Green, we know for a fact that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And year after year, we see stark disparities in funding along racial lines. In 2019, we did some research along with our partner, the Bridgespan Group, and that showed that revenues of Black-led organizations were 24% smaller than those of their white-led counterparts. And the unrestricted net assets of Black-led organizations were 76% smaller than their white-led counterparts. In the mainstream capital space, a 2023 study by McKinsey was able to reveal some similar disparities with startups by underrepresented founders, including women. Those founders were receiving only 43% of the funding compared to their white male counterparts. Really, this is a risk-averse funding sector that leads to too many emerging leaders unable to receive support.
Now, what are some of the key challenges social innovators face when, trying to seek or obtain funding?
One issue is that social enterprises are often considered to be too high risk for traditional investors, despite the extraordinary potential for impact. And by infusing capital at a particularly critical time, the Signal Fund investments make it possible for social enterprises to navigate that valley of death, to achieve sustainability and unlock innovation and impact that would otherwise go unrealized.
Now, what criteria was used to select the initial recipients of the Signal Fund?
Well, right now, the fund is open to Echoing Green Fellows, our own fellows, and as part of a 2-year pilot program, Signal is going to be making 20 investments in Echoing Green Fellows. The fund has already distributed about $3.6 million to 12 Echoing Green Fellows.
Now, the Signal Fund recipients are driving transformative impact in various areas. Can you provide some specific examples of the impact their organization is making?
Sure. I'd love to share with you 2 of the investments that we've made with New York City-based fellows. The first is Donnell Baird. He leads an organization called Block Power, which is a climate technology company that's contributing to the green economy and supporting the transition to renewable energy sources by making city buildings greener, smarter, and healthier overall. A second example from somebody that's in New York City is Jelani Anglin. He heads Good Call, which is an organization that seeks to reduce mass incarceration and empower communities impacted severely by the criminal justice system.
Now, how do you envision the Signal Fund, continuing to drive social change and innovation globally?
Well, as a result of our initial investments, the Signal Fund recipients have already leveraged an additional $18 million in funding for their organizations. That's absolutely huge. And Signal is aiming to test all of this through our new funding model. And we hope that we're going to be disrupting the current funding landscape that seems to be misaligned with the needs of social innovators and what the capital markets are interested in doing. Ultimately, we want to see social innovators receive funding that is critical such that they can grow and scale and increase their impact.
Now, what other resources or networks Echoing Green Fellows have access to?
Echoing Green is able to leverage our global network of solution-driven professionals and industry leaders in order to support our fellows both today and into the future. From our well-being and spiritual self-care to financial and business strategy, fundraising, for essential capital, our fellows are guided with critical and timely advice as they navigate the social entrepreneurship and social impact fields. After their 18-month fellowship program, Echoing Green Fellows join a lifelong community of the nearly 1,000 fellows around the globe. And as we like to say, once a fellow, always a fellow.
That's amazing. So what advice would you give to new social innovators seeking to become an Echoing Green Fellow?
Kibin, my best advice would be that new social innovators need to practice self-care whenever they can. They need to make time for it. Being an early stage social entrepreneur is really taxing, especially for leaders of color. Burnout is a huge issue, especially in the nonprofit sector. And at Echoing Green, our wellness and well-being support is built directly into our approach. And so we encourage self-care and truly want our fellows to be well. And that way they can continue to show up in the ways that the world really needs them to produce social change.
Well, Sharyanne, I want to thank you so much for joining us and, telling us a little bit more about the community Echoing Green has built and the work that they're doing to, as you mentioned, create change in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
To learn more about the Signal Fund, please go to the website echoinggreen.org. Stay tuned. We have more for you right after this.
The ability to have my show during this time is helpful because I can stay connected with my friends, still interview people, and share my content.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Kat from the Kitty Rose Lifestyle, also from The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray every week right here at BronxNet, Saturdays at 11 p.m. Wow, 30 years. 30 years of BronxNet public access television. I'm a girl from Brooklyn and came to the Bronx 25 years ago, started my journey on BronxNet on public access television in 2016, and BronxNet is where I got my start. BronxNet, I feel like, is a home away from home. They support all of my endeavors, and I wouldn't have been able to be on any of the other channels if it wasn't for the fundamentals that I learned right here at my start here at BronxNet. So I am so appreciative. My son says I should stop telling people I'm from Brooklyn because I've been here now, Bronx Strong, for 22 years. So I'm so grateful, and I wish you much success in 30 years, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 more, because public access is necessary so that people like myself can have a voice. Yes, BronxNet, it's your girl Kat from Kitty Rose. Check me out every Saturday at 11 p.m. right here, Channel 68, The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Mwah.
Welcome back. In May, many child welfare organizations highlight Foster Care Awareness Month. The JCCA, formerly known as the Jewish Child Care Association, aims to place infants and children in foster homes while their families work to overcome hardship and challenges. With over 200 years of service in New York, the current CEO and Executive Director, Richter, joins me to discuss the organization's efforts to enhance support for children and families in need. Ron, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, as I mentioned in JCCA, it's just basically been over 200 years of service. How has the organization evolved over time?
So I think one thing that JCCA feels strongly about is ensuring that we are always trying to be innovative about how we provide social services. And so I'd say the biggest part of that evolution is working hard to keep children out of foster care, to provide preventive behavioral health services in communities, and also to provide families that come to the attention of child welfare authorities with strong preventive services so that children don't have to come into care. That's really how we're trying to innovate.
Now, there's a very interesting history behind the JCCA. It, as I mentioned, was an orphanage for Jewish children. And obviously today it has changed a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit more about the state of child welfare at the time when it first began?
Of course. So at the time that JCCA began in the 1800s, there were many Jewish immigrants coming to the United States, and many settled in New York. However, they did not have the resources to support their children. Many women were identified by law enforcement as unable to care for their babies, and those children would be removed by the police and then often put in hospitals. And in the 1800s, the city reached out to philanthropists, in our case, Jewish philanthropists that had come in the 1600s from Germany and Holland, and asked them to put money together in order to care for these Jewish children. And right on through the 1960s and early 70s, JCCA only cared for Jewish children, much like other charitable organizations. The law changed, and now we take care of all children.
Now, in what ways does the organization ensure that children and young people in foster care receive quality care?
It's one of the biggest challenges we confront, and bringing us right up to recent times, we saw the pandemic really impact our ability to continue to hire strong professionals, and we are committed to quality service. I would say that the reason we can provide the type of care we do is because of an amazingly strong and committed staff. And I would say that one of the biggest challenges confronting organizations like ours today is just the incredible competition for strong social workers, strong nurses, well-trained people. And therefore, it's so important that we have excellent supervisors available. But I would say workforce is our biggest challenge today.
Now, Foster Care Awareness Month just passed in May. In addition to placing a child in care, what other services and support make up the foster care system we see today?
Right, so we do an enormous amount to provide strong medical and mental health care, not just to the child who's coming into care, but also to their parents. Because, of course, the goal of foster care is for children to return home once the level of risk to them has been reduced. And so we try very hard to provide concrete need services to families that are struggling with a child in foster care. Do they need help having their rent paid? Do they need help accessing food and other sorts of resources to support their household and ensure that their children can be safe there? And of course, we provide substance abuse treatment for those parents that need it, and a range of other services to really build the family dynamic and to support family functioning. So we do a whole range of services, but the goal here is to ensure that parents have what they need, including capacity to safely care for their children.
And then can you just expand or talk about the importance of addressing the mental and emotional health of children and young people in foster care, as well as their families?
Yeah, I would say that the need for strong mental health services is greater than ever. We have seen the occurrence of anxiety and depression among young people, particularly teenagers, resulting from the pandemic. So that period of social isolation, the lack of going to school, the lack of seeing friends, playing organized sports and other activities really impacted a young person's outlook. And so what we have seen is the need for higher end behavioral health services. And of course, any child that is separated from their family and comes into care already has experienced a trauma. And so we really do need to focus our attention now more than ever on addressing those behavioral health needs wherever the child is, at school, at home, however we can.
Now, as the landscape of the child welfare and foster care system in New York City changes, how is it currently impacting outcomes for young people and their families?
So we think that we're moving in the right direction by caring for children and their families while children are at home. So really trying to prevent removals whenever that can be safe. And of course, that means being really attendant to the family and listening to them and hearing what their experience is and how we can meet them where they are. And our goal at JCCA is to really try to figure out what a parent thinks they need to help make suggestions, to help coach. But at the end of the day, children and parents love each other. It is rare that you see a case where there isn't a deep commitment on both sides. The question is, how can we strengthen the capacity of the parent? And we're always trying to do that with resources and with well-trained social workers who are compassionate and who listen.
Now, as a former commissioner of the NYC Administration for Children's Services, you had a bird's eye view of the system at large. Where do you see the most progress, and alternatively, where do you still see room for improvement?
So I would say there is room for improvement in how we assess safety. And that will always be a challenge in child welfare. Nobody wants to remove a child unnecessarily. The question for child welfare continues to be, who's making that assessment? Are we leveraging the best innovative social science to support those assessments? And are we listening to kids? Because while it is critical that parents be heard, young people really do need to be well interviewed, and we need to think about the trustworthiness of any statement that's being made to us. And I would say that most kids don't make stuff up about being mistreated. I think the best thing about our child welfare system in New York City is that we are a national leader in providing strong and science-based preventive services, so that we know that the intervention that we're using, whether it's functional family therapy or multisystemic therapy or child and parent psychotherapy, these are interventions that have been demonstrated to really work. So that you're not in a family's life forever and ever. You're doing something to support them with the appropriate dose, that's what it's called, and then hoping to see a family sustain the improvements in safety and functioning and living without the child welfare system.
Now, with that being said, JCC offers a continuum of care for young people, not only those in your foster care programs, but overall. Can you share with our listeners what that entails?
Yeah, so we provide a range of services from community-based preventive behavioral health for perhaps a family that's in a DV shelter and is just struggling with ensuring that their child is okay and functioning well, to preventive services, as I indicated. JCCA is proud to have the first Youth ACT team in New York City, which is a family-based program where young people that have very significant behavioral health needs and diagnoses are supported by a team, including mental health professionals, medical professionals, to really shore up their family so that they can be in the community safely. And then, as I described, we do preventive services. We do two kinds of foster care for children that need to come in to care for safety. And then we provide residential services for children who have very high acuity and also struggle with developmental disabilities. So we go all the way from the light touch behavioral health service to the deepest end service for children that are really struggling, as are their families.
Now, as mentioned, May was Foster Care Awareness Month, but now that June has arrived, it's Pride Month, and I think it's so important to discuss this. What is the importance of having foster parents who identify as members of the LGBTQIA community, and how can that be helpful for young people in the system?
So, obviously, pride is very important in the foster care system. There are a disproportionate number of young people that identify as LGBTQIA in care across the country. Many of those young people are drawn to New York City because it's considered a place that is accepting. The fact of the matter is that whether a foster parent identifies as LGBTQIA or not, we need foster parents that are going to affirm children's core, who they are. And as everyone knows, adolescents are figuring out who they are. So they should come into care and be in homes where people are accepting and will give them space to figure out who they are. Kids in care are just like kids everywhere. They're each different. They have different ideas, different thoughts, different interests. It is up to us to have foster parents who are going to encourage that development and who are also going to work with parents. We need foster parents who understand that they are there to foster the relationship between that child and that parent so that that family can be reunited. And I think that it is an area where we are making improvements, but certainly if anybody out there is interested in fostering, they should either dial 311 or call us. Our website is jccany.org and get information about how they can support young people.
And, I'm so glad that you mentioned just the reality that there are a lot of LGBTQIA children and young people because, just throughout research, it shows that a lot of children in that community tend to be more homeless or deal with, a lot of familial issues. So thank you so much for kind of highlighting that, especially now that we're in June. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. How can, viewers take action to better support young people in foster care system? And with that, I'll expand. How can teachers or, people in these children's lives, better support them?
Yeah, so I really think it's important for us to understand that in 2024 in New York City, it is very difficult to get into foster care. That families have really experienced significant trauma before a child is removed. We really do everything we can to prevent that removal. In 1990, there were 50,000 children or so in foster care from New York City. Today, there are fewer than 7,000. So we've really made strong and important advances. However, it is important for everyone to understand that kids in care come in traumatized and then are re-traumatized. And we need to stop stigmatizing foster care, understand these are some of the most resilient young people you will ever meet, and try to change the narrative on what we think about foster youth, because they're fantastic. They're just like every other kid. They've just been hit with some incredibly difficult circumstances. So I would say what we can do is stop thinking about foster kids as some monolith and realize that we can be mentors for foster kids, tutors for foster kids, and you're going to meet a kid just like yours, except they've unfortunately encountered some really difficult waters.
Well, Ron, I want to thank you so much for joining us and, educating our viewers about foster care and highlighting the importance of foster care awareness. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you want to know more about the work that JCCA is doing to help the foster care system, please visit their website, which is seen on the screen below. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Open after this.
Thank you, Bronx Ned. Congratulations on 30 years. What an amazing accomplishment. On behalf of myself, Alina Dow, and I represent the Dow Twins and the Dow Twins Show, who are young producers. They started, I think, when they were 11, and now they're 14. They started making 30-second little fun facts, and now they are doing 30-minute shows. And it goes to a testament of how much you guys do in the Bronx to make young people want to continue to be involved. I wish you 30 more amazing years and beyond. Thank you for what you do.
57% of New York City high school students are college ready by their senior year. "55% of high school graduates either have no plans to attend college or are uncertain that they will ever attend. "34% of young adults don't go to college because they can't afford it. Discover what's possible. BronxNet's education programs, internships, and opportunities help engage and inspire Bronx youth and beyond to pursue their passions. Be a part of the BronxNet family. Whether you're interested in our shows, joining a class, or donating to support our mission, visit bronxnet.org to learn more. Welcome back. City Meals on Wheels published a report titled Aging Without Hunger, Ending Food Insecurity for Older New Yorkers by 2040. The data collected in partnership with the CUNY Urban Food Policy Institute reveals a food insecurity crisis among adults aged 60 and above. The COO for City Meals on Wheels, Rachel Sherrow, joins me to discuss solutions aimed at helping this demographic. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as mentioned, food insecurity and hunger are affecting millions of New Yorkers, but right now there's an effort to end hunger among the elderly. Can you tell me a little bit more about that specific effort?
Sure. There are about 8 million New Yorkers throughout the 5 boroughs, and there are about 1.8 million of those who are 60 and older. So it's 20% of the population. It's a large percentage. And we know that there is food insecurity. We didn't know how deep until we undertook this important research. We looked at those who attend older adult centers, of which there are about 175,000 New Yorkers, and those who receive home delivered meals, 1 meal a day in their homes, and there are about 27,000 of those folks. So it's a smaller portion of that total 1.8 million, but what we were able to find was quite disturbing. Anecdotally, we understood that maybe people needed a little more, but what we learned was that 60% of those who receive the 1 meal a day in their home are food insecure, meaning that they need more than the 1 meal, and close to 50% of those attending older adult centers are also food insecure.
Now, the elderly are vulnerable to living in hunger due to physical and financial barriers. Can you detail some of the challenges facing older New Yorkers?
Absolutely. Those who are receiving home delivered meals are unable to shop or cook for themselves. 85% live alone. What we did find, which is a very good statistic, is that close to 90% are very happy with the service. They feel that it keeps them living better in their homes safely and more healthy, but they do say that they need more. We do know that 65% of those who we surveyed live on $15,000 or less. 32% do not have Social Security. And 56% do receive SNAP, which is incredible. And we commend the city for their incredible work and their outreach. What part of the issue is that 55% do not even know if they're eligible. We have to reach these communities a little better with more education and destigmatizing receiving services like SNAP.
And I want to expand on SNAP. Are there any other challenges with this service that are causing a lot of older New Yorkers refraining from even, I guess, learning more about it or having to just know what is accessible to them in regard to SNAP?
Sure. I think there's misinformation. I think people believe that to recertify or even to get on the program is a hardship. It has been made much easier thanks to partially COVID and helping to take some of the onus off of the older adult. I think there's misinformation that people will be receiving less than they actually will. SNAP dollars help stimulate the economy within New York City, and it helps older adults and any New Yorkers with additional food that they could use.
Now, expanding on some of the challenges facing older New Yorkers, I understand that for many people, just cooking and dealing with groceries can be stressful. But I understand with older New Yorkers, it also kind of induces anxiety. Can you tell us a little bit more about the mental health aspect of, just not having access to the food that you need to survive?
Sure, it's a great question, and one I don't think we really understood. The anxiety that older New Yorkers face, even thinking about how to put some food items together or to cook or even think about where they're going to get their next meal, is very stressful. We do know that 41% can't even shop for themselves. Only 18% actually get groceries delivered. The others, are either unaware of the service, unable to access the internet. Only 25% actually use the internet. And we're looking at folks who are not utilizing benefits they may be entitled to, like SNAP. The mental stress to make a meal or to think about preparing a meal can then lead to just not eating. And that can lead, obviously, to malnourishment and hospitalization.
Now, as you mentioned a few times, many older adults rely on home deliveries and adult centers for food. But the number of adults relying on these services increasing, what impact is this having on the organizations that are doing this work?
Well, we're seeing a rebound in older adult centers after COVID, which is great. And for home delivered meals, there is a growing need because the population is increasing. What we need is an infusion of support and funding. The Department for the Aging receives less than 1% of the total budget for New York City, even though the number of older adults is close to 20% of the total population. So there needs to be a right sizing in our society. We need to support our local officials in more funding and better infrastructure, and we need to support them in pushing the state and the federal government in infusing more funding into the city. The city spends a tremendous amount. The dollars are not equal to what the state and the feds put in.
And I definitely want to expand on that. I've done a lot of research on food insecurity, especially coming out of COVID or during COVID, and the amount of pantries that were filled with people, not just elderly, but everyone who needed resources was so overwhelming. And I knew that it definitely had an impact on a lot of those organizations doing this work. So I was really just glad to see that City Meals is trying to do some work to kind of address this issue head on. Now, I understand that City Meals believes that food insecurity for older adults can be eliminated through modernizing public programs. What does this mean, and what will it take to achieve that goal?
Well, that's one of our goals. We do think that we know that hunger is a solvable problem. City Meals on Wheels cannot do it alone. We are looking to partners, government partners, local community-based organizations, and just typical New Yorkers to help support this. Part of what we talk about in the study, in the research, is modernizing the current infrastructure of older adult centers and the home delivered meal program. That's going to take a lot of creativity and ingenuity, but many of the kitchens could be updated and modernized to produce more, or to be working longer hours than the typical 9 to 3, let's say, when older adult centers are open, so that we can offer meals at different times when maybe community members or older adults who are watching their grandchildren can bring them in for a later meal, things like that.
Now, another goal for the organization is to expand on the existing programs, but also launch new programs. Can you tell me a little bit more about that effort?
Sure, we will be launching some new programs over the summer, so we'll be excited to share that then. We will be expanding some of our current programs, like our mobile food pantry. Many of our recipients are unable to access food pantries because of the hours, or because they cannot physically get there, or physically take the food home. We bring that food directly to them. We also want to expand our fresh produce program, which works similarly to those who just don't have access to fresh produce in their communities because of financial restrictions or geographic or physical issues. So some of those programs we want to expand so that everybody has food whenever they need it and they have healthy options.
Now, we're seeing a lot of work from different organizations, and even New Yorkers themselves have done things to kind of support those who are hungry, like the fridges on the sidewalk, and they'll put food in there, which are all amazing things. But what can New York City's elected officials do to ensure that fewer New Yorkers go hungry?
Well, we want to work with them to push the state and the federal government to renew and update things like the Older Americans Act, which talks about and has legislation on older adult centers and home delivered meals, making them more flexible so that there can be more meals delivered or different hours for older adult centers to be open, things like that. And to really donate time and money to these efforts to a variety of different providers, including local pantries.
Now, Rachel, what resources are available to seniors that are currently facing food insecurity, and what are some steps that they can take?
Well, they can go to our website, citymeals.org, and look for some of the programs, but they could also sign up for home delivered meals. The City of New York, through the Department for the Aging, has a website where you can also look for services or where your local older adult centers are. And 311 is helpful for local food pantries as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely think it's so important because I come from a community. Obviously, this is New York City, so there are elder adults everywhere, and I don't think many know that they can have food delivered to them. So thank you so much for sharing that piece of information. Now, something that I do think is very important is that although we are looking to our elected officials to make change, there are things that New Yorkers, everyday New Yorkers, can do to help with this. So how can viewers and even organizations support City Meals' effort to end food insecurity?
Well, again, they can go to our website, citymeals.org. They can volunteer time, money, or partnership. We would love to work with as many organizations as possible to make this happen, to end elder hunger by 2040. Again, we cannot do it alone, so we're looking forward to many new partners and those that we have been working with for many years to continue this valiant effort that we feel that really can be ended and solved by 2040.
And just to highlight the aspect of different organizations, are there any qualities of organizations that you look in that you would want to have, be on the team to help end food insecurity in New York City by 2040?
Well, you did mention being a New Yorker. Everything is local, politics is local, and so is community work. We'd love to work with organizations that really understand their community. Every community is different in New York, and we want to make sure that we reach people the right way, in the way that they want to be helped and can be helped and served. So it's really important to make sure that we're working with everybody throughout the 5 boroughs who understands their community needs.
Well, Rachel, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this discussion.
Thank you for having us.
We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you miss any part of today's show, you can catch the recabled cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren He on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.